There comes a time in a man's life when God removes everything he's been depending on. Not to hurt him, but to push him to grow. The friends who promised to stay leave. The money you saved disappears. The people you trusted stop showing up. And you're left standing alone, wondering what happened. That's when a man finally understands who God really is. It's easy to talk about faith when life is smooth. But you only see God clearly when He is the only one you can turn to. As long as you have other options, you'll keep relying on them. As long as you think you can fix everything yourself, you won't look up. But when every plan fails and the world goes quiet, you face the truth. If God is all you have, then He is enough. In that silent, painful place, when you can't pretend to be strong anymore, something changes. That lonely season becomes God's training ground. You start to see that what felt like being abandoned was actually preparation. What felt like losing everything was actually protection. And what looked like the end was really the beginning of a new chapter. Real faith doesn't grow in comfort. It grows when you have nothing left but God, and you realize that He was the foundation all along. Let me tell you a story. The morning sun streamed through the large windows of the Harper family home, casting warm light on a scene of laughter and contentment. Emily Harper poured orange juice into 3 small cups, one for each of her children, while her husband, Michael, flipped pancakes on the stove. The house smelled of fresh bread, coffee, and the soft sweetness of vanilla from the pancakes. "Mom, look. I made a tower with my blocks," shouted 8-year-old Sophie, holding up a shaky stack of colorful cubes. Emily smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "That's amazing, sweetheart. You're very talented." Across the kitchen, 10-year-old Jacob pretended to be a superhero, chasing his younger sister Lily around the table. Michael laughed, carrying the last pancake to the plate. It was the picture of a happy family. Financially comfortable, emotionally connected, and full of dreams for the future. Emily had a quiet passion for baking, something she loved back in college, but with the family's busy life, her hobby had been tucked away like a delicate recipe on a forgotten shelf. Everything seemed perfect, until the world turned upside down. It happened on a Tuesday. Michael never came home. A sudden heart attack had stolen him from this world, leaving Emily and the children in stunned silence. The shock was immediate, paralyzing. Bills were left unpaid. Investments that seemed secure vanished under the weight of debts Michael had never spoken about. Their fortune, built over years, was gone in a blink. Friends who had laughed with them, who had promised to stand by them, drifted away when they saw the challenges. Some were too busy, some uncomfortable with pain, and others simply vanished. Emily found herself staring at unpaid bills on the kitchen counter, her hands shaking. Her children clung to her, their faces pale with fear and confusion. She remembered the college baking classes, the nights she'd stayed up perfecting a chocolate cake, or experimenting with bread and pastries. A small flicker of hope ignited, not for escape, but for survival. The first night alone was the hardest. Emily sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the dark ceiling. The quiet was deafening. Lily's small frame slept in her bed, Sophie's pillow soaked from tears she refused to cry out loud, and Jacob held his favorite superhero toy, pretending the world was still normal. Emily felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. She had lost her husband, her financial security, and almost every friend she had trusted. She was alone. Completely, painfully alone. It was in that darkness, in that moment of despair, that she whispered a prayer. Not for wealth, not for miracles, but for strength. For guidance. For the courage to rise. The next morning, Emily opened her college baking notebook. Dusty, worn, but full of hope. She decided to bake again, not for money at first, but to feed her children. The first few attempts were messy. Flour covered the counters, eggs cracked in the wrong way, and the oven seemed to betray her at every turn. But the children's smiles, the smell of warm cake filling the small apartment, reminded her of something she had almost forgotten, her own strength. She started baking for neighbors, then friends she still trusted, and soon her little creations began to get noticed. Chocolate cakes, cinnamon rolls, and delicate tarts brought small moments of joy to those who tasted them. The word spread. Soon, orders began to come in. What started as a handful of cakes turned into dozens each week. Emily worked tirelessly, rising before dawn, kneading dough, testing new recipes late into the night. Her children helped where they could, Jacob packaging boxes, Sophie drawing designs for cake decorations, Lily sprinkling powdered sugar like fairy dust. It wasn't easy. There were days she wanted to give up, nights she cried herself to sleep, and moments when she questioned if she was doing enough. But she remembered the prayer she had whispered on that first night of despair, for strength. Slowly, her baking became popular in the city. People began sharing photos of her cakes on social media, praising the unique flavors and the warmth that seemed baked into every bite. With her growing reputation, Emily decided it was time to open a small bakery. She found a modest space, decorated it with bright colors and warm wood tones, and put up a simple sign, Emily's Cakes and Pastries. The first few months were grueling. She handled deliveries, took orders, baked herself, and managed the kids. Exhaustion was constant, but she never let it break her. She remembered the nights of despair, the emptiness of the first lonely days, and she realized something profound: she was not alone. Her faith, once tested in the harshest ways, had grown stronger. What she thought was abandonment had been preparation. What she thought was loss had been protection. Years passed. Emily's bakery flourished. Children ran happily around the store, now safe, loved, and confident. Her small shop became a community hub, a place where people came not just for cakes, but for the warmth and hope that Emily radiated. She had risen from the ashes. The mother who once felt powerless had become a symbol of resilience and faith. Through pain, loneliness, and struggle, she had discovered her strength. She had turned her passion into purpose, her grief into growth, and her silence into a classroom where God had taught her the lessons of life. When everything was lost, she found herself. Pain became purpose. Loneliness became her classroom. And through faith, perseverance, and courage, a mother built not just a business, but a life filled with hope, love, and meaning. Sometimes God strips away what we think we need, so that we can discover what we were meant to be. Real strength, real faith, doesn't grow in comfort, it grows when the world is quiet, and the only foundation left is the one within us. And when you discover that, you rise. You rise from the ashes, stronger than before.